Someone that is a murderer, that's just not right. I feel like they should do their time, their complete time. If it's life, they should do life.
Jackson County Sheriff Mike Byrd shares some of his thoughts about the ongoing pardons controversy.
And as you heard, it's not sitting well with him. He wants them returned to prison to do all their time.
And he's also concerned about the victims, like the family of a Pascagoula woman who was killed by her husband.
A career lawman now in his 4th term and a proud public servant, Sheriff Byrd recently sat down with our Eric Reynolds for the interview.
I love what I do. You've got to want to be in this business. I feel like it's a calling.
Sheriff Mike Byrd is Jackson County, Mississippi's top lawman. You could say he was born into the family business. His grandfather, his dad, brother, cousins, a nephew, and one of his sons, all law enforcement officers.
From as far back as I can remember as a little bitty boy, that's all I've known is law enforcement.
Now in his 4th term, he's a 3rd member of the Byrd family to serve as Jackson County Sheriff. Mike Byrd literally lived in the courthouse when his father served, starting in 1964.
I was only 13 years old. I saw in him, you know, the satisfaction that he got out of helping people. The greatest influence he had on me was he said, "Son, if you're going to do the job, do it to the best of your ability, and always remember that you are a public servant."
Joe, you're under arrest.
Back in the old days, they just put a badge on the biggest and the baddest and told him to go out there and enforce the law.
In the 70s, Deputy Mike Byrd was one of 22 deputies on staff. Today, his department is 10 times larger, and law enforcement is demanding an officer of higher qualifications.
You can't just come into this business and not know what you're doing. You've got to be educated. You've got to have a good head on your shoulders. These meth labs, they blow up. We've had several people die in explosions from meth labs. And it's very dangerous, it's very volatile. It's not just Jackson County, everybody's dealing with meth labs.
Sheriff Byrd says that his department is holding its own as they crack down on those making meth. He recently had to arrest a Moss Point volunteer fireman.
You're a fireman, why'd you do this? When you have a public servant that's involved in something like that, it's very disappointing. And if somebody is violating the law, they're going to be prosecuted no matter who they are.
The sheriff says working and communicating with other law enforcement agencies in Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana makes his job a little easier as they look for those involved in the drug trade in Jackson County and those traveling through on I-10 and US 90.
Criminals don't know jurisdiction lines, so you've got to share information, and it's led us to some pretty big drug dealers, because when you share information, you're going to know who's coming and where they're going, and hopefully we're going to catch them.
A Texas bank robber came to the end of his road recently in Jackson County. Shared information said the so-called handsome bandit could be headed that way. Sheriff Byrd shot his tires out, bringing the chase to an end.
I've always thought about my decisions. Sometimes you don't have time to think. You know, you've got to just, focus, and you've got to revert back to your training. That was just a horrendous case where you have 4 little children that were thrown off a bridge. I mean, innocent little children for no reason, just killed. It kind of overwhelms you at times. I wanted to do something to try to help. I took one of my helicopters and went over there, and we searched for a long time. I think 3 weeks that we were in the air. And all 4 of the children were found. We found 1 in Jackson County.
Murderers like Lamb Long is one reason why Sheriff Byrd is disappointed by Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour's pardoning of convicted killers.
I have the utmost respect for Governor Barbour. He's a good man. But when you release someone that is a murderer, that's just not right. I feel like they should do their time, their complete time. If it's life, they should do life. You've got victims who've had closure and then they get released, well then they relive that whole traumatic situation again.
Sheriff Byrd knows personally about tragedy, losing a loved one, his oldest son, Pascagoula motorcycle officer Terry Byrd, in an accident while on duty.
If my son hadn't have got killed, I probably would have retired. I'm going to continue to do it as long as I can. I'm very thankful for what the Lord has given me. I believe I was put in this office for a reason. The opportunity to serve the citizens of Jackson County. I just enjoy my job. It's not about money, it's about public service.
In Jackson County, Mississippi, Eric Reynolds, Fox 10 News.
And the sheriff says it takes money to fight meth, so he's sending his officers to Washington to make sure federal funding keeps coming to Jackson County.
An avid baseball fan, the sheriff has served the youth of Jackson County by coaching summer baseball league teams and umpire games for more than 25 years.